Hi, this is Dan Warner. You're listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on 3SER Casey Radio.
I saw you hid, you always did, in places hid from me.
Okay, well, congratulations on the album. Would it have come out a little earlier in a non-COVID world? Was it delayed at all by the COVID process?
Yeah, it was delayed. I think, like most people, we had trouble just getting together and getting studio time, and also because I wanted to put it out on vinyl this time, John. There was a bit of a backlog on vinyl orders, so it was hard to get vinyl pressed in Australia. So I just decided, but that said, I also think it feels a bit like a summer record to me. So I held it off until this time because I think I think the songs to me feel like they would suit a summer listener rather than a winter one. I don't know why, but it just feels like a summer record for some reason.
It's interesting you build this album as Dan Warner and the Night Parrots as opposed to just your own name as you've done with previous solo albums. So no doubt, even though they're your songs, you do consider this very much a band project. Yeah,
well, there are three co-writes on it. The producer, Marcel Borak, co-wrote three of the songs, turning out to be the most popular on the record, which is funny. I'm sure you know Marcel from his solo work.
Yeah.
He's a great producer, but he produced. You probably know this also, John. He produced my last two solo records. So we decided a few years ago that I really needed my own band because you know well that I used to play in a band called the Warner Brothers for many years, and that band it sort of came out of the rockabilly scene in the mid '80s, and I think that most of the songs that band recorded were James Stewart's songs, who was the guitar player in the band. And my songs sort of tend to suit a different kind of band. It's a bit more, it's just got a bit more versatility, a bit more, I don't know, I've said this a few times, but it's got a bit of West Coast rock sprinkled in amongst the country stuff. So I think that suits my songwriting. That's a bit more. It's got a bit more space, and it just needs a bit more space. So many years ago, after the third solo record, we decided to put together a band with Ash Davies on drums. So I needed a really solid, airy, spacey drummer. I'm not talking about his head. I'm talking about his playing. I think Ash sort of really forms the basis of this band in that he's just so musical and he's so open and that there is so much space in his playing that we don't have to play too much around him. And I think that really suits my singing style and my lyrical style. So therefore, this record is the first one after many years of playing together. I mean, the band's been playing together for 6 years, so it really feels like this music is written for this band. So hence Dan Warner and the Night Parrots.
So having that cohesive...
Sorry about a long-winded answer.
No. Having that cohesive unit behind you rather than a group of session players playing on various tracks was more likely to give you the sound that you were looking for.
Well, that's exactly right. And in the past, because I have brought in other players, or it's been mainly Marcel playing on the record, we've sort of worked on one take of the song, if you know what I mean. We build up a song from drums or build it up, just working on one take at different times. But now I have a band. What we did this time, because I really wanted to capture the live feeling of the band, so we rehearsed. We went to a rehearsal studio for a few days, just made sure we knew the songs pretty well, and then we went to a studio where we could play live, which was Park Orchards Studios up in Park Orchards, funnily enough, and just set the band up and we just did takes rather than we didn't work on one take. We just kept playing takes until we felt like we had a good one. So that's why it sounds. I think it does sound like a band playing because we didn't really use much overdubbing at all on this. Only if we wanted to add something, we used an overdub, but the band and even me singing is all recorded live.
Yeah, I checked out the website for the studios up at Park Orchards. It looks like a fantastic environment to work in. What influence did working there have on the end result, do you think?
Oh, I think it had a huge influence, John. It was Marcel. I think Marcel's recorded up there a bit, and the guy who runs the studio, Evan Lorden, he's a collector of old radio gear and old valve gear, and it's a beautiful space. If you've seen photos of it, the studio's elevated up into the trees in Park Orchards, and and you really do feel like you're up in the you are up in the trees, and there's a long sight line, and there's just one big room, and I could play. I was set up in one room, and the bass player and the drummer in another room, and Marcel. Actually, Marcel was in the same room, just had his amp in another room. So I just felt like it was one beautiful space up in the trees that was, we could set up there for a few days and just, as I said, just get the right takes. We just felt completely relaxed. And it was also, it was a space in the pandemic where, we had a month or so where we could actually play in the same room. So there was that sort of joyful, that sort of joyful feeling of a band playing together who hadn't played together for a long time because we hadn't been allowed to. So I think that was part of it. We were all just so happy to be together, but it was also that being up in the trees and also driving, sort of driving out of town a bit. You feel like you're actually going somewhere to do the work. I think that actually helped us a bit too.
Yeah. Makes it special.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it did feel special.
I guess in this day and age when you can pretty much record an album in your lounge room if you want to, it's good to see artists that still feel the need to go off to another location and set up a recording studio and do it the old school way.
Yeah, well, they're such good musicians, and as I said, the band had played enough gigs to have a sound. So I think that's to me that's what you want to capture on a record. So I'm just so glad we did it that way, and I think the record feels you can actually hear it. I think it actually sounds like a band playing together in a small room.
You put it out independently. Did you try shopping it to a label at all, or are you just so entrenched in that independent way of doing things now that you didn't even give it a thought?
Oh, I had a little bit of a squeeze with labels, but I'm just so used to it, John. As you know, it's just I'm an old sort of independent campaigner, and I'm a firm believer that you can do it yourself. And I think that comes out of having a very bad experience in our youth with Warner Brothers, and you may remember we had to change our name. We got sued. There was legal action from Warner Brothers over our name, and then we got signed to it. So we changed our name and got signed to a major label as Overnight Jones, and that didn't go so well. And really the label broke up that band, which was a real shame because that band played together for 15 years. From the mid 80s. I think we formed in 85 and we lasted till about 1999. So. It was 15, and I think without our first record that we put out completely independently, that Warner Brothers record, we had a great time. It was really successful. As soon as we signed to a label and changed our name, everything went pear-shaped. So I just like being in control of it, and not having people tell me that I should try and sound like Oasis, or whatever they tried to do to Overnight Jones,
I imagine you would have built up quite a stockpile of new songs since your last album. Being the writer that you are, talk us through the selection process, how you went about whittling them down to the 11 that we have.
Well, I've got heaps and heaps of songs, exactly right. But what I did, I said to Marcel, well, what I'll do is I'll demo 20 at home, or 20, I think I demo 25 at home, just, and my demoing process, John, is very, very basic. I just basically an old tape deck in the corner. But I said to Marcel, look, I've done this in the past with Marcel because I trust him, and he's got a different ear to me. I just said, you choose the songs. I'll give you complete control over whatever you want. What you choose the 10 or 11 or whatever you think, and then I'll follow your direction, which is really good for me because I do have so much material, you tend to fall in love with the wrong things, not just your songs, but he's just a really good objective head. And the other thing, we also thought this time that the record should be a bit more straight up rock and roll. I mean, as you know, a lot of particularly in the last couple of solo records, have been quite introspective and wordy, and Marcel's not a big fan of the big wordy song. I love those big Dylan songs and Tom Waits songs with 20 verses. I love those songs. I grew up on those songs, and I write a lot of those songs, but he immediately cut them out. Like there was one song called Goldilocks that had 24 verses, and he said, well, the first one that's out is that one that's got 24 verses. I'm just not recording that. So that was, I think he had because he plays in the band too, John, I think that's another thing. He knew, he had an idea of what the band sounded like and what the band would record well, and a bunch of songs that would be cohesive on one record. And I think he did a good job, actually. His
for sure.
song selection.
Yeah,
It seems to flow pretty well as an album.
certainly does. Let's talk about some of the songs. Any significance behind choosing the song "Maybe Then" as the title track?
I think it was because it was the first one I wrote in that period when I sat down. I actually sat down. I wanted to write a couple of new ones for the record, and it was one. I hate talking about lockdown much. It was one of the first ones where I sort of felt like I was getting out of the doldrums a bit. The song I wrote before that was one called "The President of the United States," which was about Trump, which had about 16 verses, which you can find on YouTube, which I put up in in a fit of anger on YouTube in my bed from my bedroom. But after that, I felt like I just didn't want to start. I just didn't want to write songs about the pandemic. I thought I want the record to be for people out on the other side of it. So I just felt like a song of hope, and it's just got an inkling of hope in the title, and I thought that's a nice open title for the record as well.
I saw you quoted as saying that song was the song that was closest to your earlier songwriting efforts. Was that something you consciously set out to do when you were writing it?
No, I think it takes me a bit of a run up sometimes to get the songs flowing, and I think I tend to fall back because I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I think my natural songwriting style is in that early 70s. Dylan, Neil. I think I just tend to. It's almost folk, it's almost folky stuff. And I think I feel most comfortable there. So I think that's why it's the first one, because I think I wasn't being too adventurous. I was just trying to write something decent in my own, in a style that I was safest in.
The song "Lady on the Water" comes from a set of lyrics I believe you've been hanging on to for quite a while.
Yes.
Is there anything in particular about that song that left it unfinished for so many years that you couldn't quite get around to finishing?
Well, I have this really bad problem, John, that if I do finish a lyric, I can't find music for it. I need to be writing the music at the same time, or it's some block I have. So that's why I've got stacks and stacks of these lyrics here at home. Like there's a book's worth of lyrics, and if they're finished, I don't know. I think I might just get too critical of them, and I just can't find a melody. So that was a co-write. So that was one I thought I sort of dug through, because I did live in New York many years ago for a couple of years, and I thought, well, this one is okay, maybe. And I just sent a whole lot of lyrics to Marcel, and he connected with that one straight away. And I just think that the melody he wrote for that is just absolutely stunning. It really, I kind of like it too, because it's a song about New York, but it does feel like it's a Paul, it's got that sort of Paul Simon feel to it, in some ways. But I didn't write the melody, so that's I can disown that link if I need to. But I just think he sort of got it right. He got the emotion of that right, and the lyric was better than I thought in the end. It's actually quite a neat one how it mirrors itself in the last verse. So
that's quite common for you to have lyrics lying around for long periods of time before they get put to music.
Yeah, that's right. I have got folders and folders and folders of them, because I write a lot, and I'm actually more confident with the lyrics than the music. So, which is pretty odd, since I've been playing guitar since I was 7. But I just love writing. I'm a reader, and I love poetry, and as I said, I love those. I think probably because I grew up on Dylan and Tom Waits and Joni Mitchell, all those great lyric writers. So I'm just fascinated by lyrics that are moving without being too twee, and that's the trick. That's the trick, I think. To try and move people without being too overly emotional, and yeah, that's why I keep tinkering away.
I wasn't aware that you'd lived in New York for those years. Were you doing a lot over there musically?
Yeah, it's after the band. After the band broke up, which was 1999. Paul Hester from Crowded House had been a really big supporter of the Warner Brothers in the old days, and he was a neighbour of mine in Elwood. So, I think he knew I was at a bit of a loose end after the band broke up. And this is a funny story. Do you remember the Mick Malloy show?
Oh, yeah, very, very brief, yeah.
Paul Hester, he was the house band. He was the leader of the house band on that show, and they invited me on to perform a song with them as a closing number on one of those shows, and it went really well. So after that, they asked me to join the band, which was, Hesse's band after Crowded House, and played in that for a year or so. And then the guitar player from that band moved back to New York. He was American. He moved back to New York. Said, "Oh, you should come, spend some time over here and, try and see what you can do in the States." So I thought it was a really good opportunity. So I relocated for 2 years in 2000 and 2002, and based myself in New York, but tried to, I played all over the States for a couple of years. It was a great experience. Learned a lot, mainly got a bit of confidence back, and came back to Australia and recorded my first solo record. So yeah, I wrote a lot of songs in those 2 years when I was, cold and lonely.
So what were the main thing you took out of that New York experience that's had a profound ongoing effect on you and your music since you've returned?
Oh, I think the main thing I took out of it was when I saw so much bad New Jersey leather pants rock in New York City that would never cut the mustard here, and you sort of realised, even travelling around the States a lot, I just realised how high the standard was of music in Melbourne and Australia. I talk about growing up on Bob Dylan and Neil Young, but the bands, the bands who had the local musicians had a huge effect on me when I was young. Like one of the first records I bought was 5 Times the Sun, for instance, and I just loved the Dingoes. I loved that first record too. I loved the Stars, Andy Durant's songwriting. Who else? Cold Chisel. I was a huge Cold Chisel fan. There was, and in so many genres, there were just great songwriters in Australia. So I realised when I was living overseas that it's nice to be overseas and it looks impressive that that I'm in New York, but what I really needed to do was just be doing good work. It didn't really matter where I was to be doing that, and I thought that the standard here was as good as anywhere in the world, which it is, as we know. I mean, the people who come through your show, it's just ridiculously a ridiculously fertile ground for songwriting in all genres in this city. So I think I realised that I should, home is home, and I just need to, my real challenge is not to travel the world and try and, live some sort of pipe dream of making it in New York. It's more about just getting better at what I do wherever I am. So I think that's what I learnt the most. That you don't need to be in New York City to be successful. You just need to be successful in your own mind.
And having said that, you have had a fair bit of interest from overseas on this record, haven't you?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing it gave me, I guess, is the other thing it gave me is just confidence to realise that, that because the standard is so good here, that we are, Australian music are as good as anybody else. So you should be pushing your music overseas. So, I made a few contacts when I was there, but it's just, there's no different to working your record here. There's millions of stations exactly like, KC Radio all over the States. And what I do is just solicit people exactly like you, John, because, I can find your email. If I go to KC Radio, I can see what you play. And if you got the time and, you know the right cities, and I do have a bit of a foothold in some places, so I just literally, remind people of what I've done and try and get them to play my songs, and it's been, people have been really great. I've had a lot of airplay through Canada and the States, Austin and Memphis, and just little pockets, which is all you need, really.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I love the video you put together for the song Summer Out of Reach. It fits the song beautifully. There's a lot of old home movie footage there. Tell us about putting that together. I'm
probably going to get sued for that.
Oh, really?
Well, I grew up in Perth. We moved around a lot as a kid because my old man was a print journo, a sports journalist. But we started out in Perth. So I lived in the middle of my childhood. I had 4 or 5 years there on the northern beaches, and so did Ash Davies. Funnily enough, the drummer in the band, we worked out he grew up about 1 kilometre from my joint.
Oh, really?
So we were swimming on the same beaches and growing, probably staring at the same girls on the beach. But it was, it was just that was a big part of my life. That and it was it was in the 70s too. I think that's what also, we moved back to Melbourne in 79. So I think there's that sort of, mythologizing in my mind about Perth and the West Coast and youth. And the music was around at that time. As I said, I was really influenced by that West Coast stuff coming out of America, in those days too. I loved Linda Ronstadt, I loved the Eagles. I loved, the first band I was in was with my brother in 1970. I think I've got a photo. Our first gig was in 1977. And, we were playing, I remember our big song was Hollywood Nights, Bob Seger,
Nice.
So they were just, I think those days I think I've mythologized in my head. So I just, for that video, because that song really is about those days. Somewhere Out of Reach is really about, trying to, thinking about my long lost youth back there in Perth. And the video, I thought, well, I'm just going to try and find on YouTube anything from around that area that's up there that I can grab. And I literally trawled through looking at old surfing stuff and, some tourists had put some stuff up from the era, so I literally just grabbed it and put it all together.
Okay. Right, so they're not Warner Home movies.
No, they're not my home. No, they're not. But they're right from where all those locations are right where I grew up. So it could be my home movies, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Every time I go to a gig at the Mimo, I always park next to the roller coaster at Luna Park. So the front cover of your album was very recognisable to me, instantly recognisable, in fact. Any significance as why you chose that shot for the front cover?
Well, I'm a St Kilda. Well, I've been a long time St Kilda resident, and I think that's also part of my youth. Because I said my old man was a print journo. Like we lived here in the 70s. Like we every Sunday for some reason we'd go down to Leo's Spaghetti Bar and have lunch. And I remember asking every Sunday, can we go to Luna Park? Can we go to Luna Park? And there was the the great day when we actually did go there. So it's always lived in my sort of psyche, Luna Park. And I live really close to it, and I'd walk past it every day. And it sort of also, the shot to me had that really was really indicative of the title, that you're sort of locked out of somewhere that's fun. And maybe one day I'll get over that fence and ride the roller coaster.
Ah, okay, makes sense now.
Yeah, so it was a bit like that, but also because it's also I just love being near the ocean. A lot of people wouldn't call the bay the ocean, particularly us uppity Western Australians, but I just need to live near the water. So, and I walk past it every day with my dog. So it's just, I love it. Just one of those places that still makes me feel happy.
We talked briefly about Marcel earlier, and he has produced your other albums beforehand, before this one. So what does he bring to the table more than anything else as a producer that makes him perfect for you?
That's a good question. And I think we're very similar in many ways. Like we're very similar in our outlook to life, but we're different generations slightly. So, and he's a better guitar player than me. That's for starters. So he just brings a bit of a slightly different perspective. I think he understands what I'm trying to do, and he has also the production skills to help me realise what I'm hearing in my head. So it's taken me a long time to find someone who I really trust doing that, if you know what I mean, John. Mm-hmm. It's like I've had other producers who have taken my work and they've had a vision for it that just didn't really, particularly in those record label days, they took, the second Overnight Jones, or the first Overnight Jones record really doesn't sound like the band at all, so because some producer had in his head, something that wasn't true to the band. I think we were too young to rein that in the day. But I think after Marcel made that first record of mine, and interestingly, the first record he made was kind of a greatest hits record, because at the time I was with Mick Thomas's label, Croxton, and Mick said, what you need is a record with all your old songs on it from the band that aren't available anymore, and you should re-record them the way you wanted them recorded. So that's kind of what I did on that record, and because he got them so right, I think that Night Parrots record is the one I'm talking about. He got those, with not much money and not much, not a big studio, but I think I was really happy with how some of those songs came out, particularly after they'd been ruined in the old days. So I think that's how it started. I think, once I heard what he did with that, and I think the trust. Once you trust someone with your music, it's a really big thing.
Yeah, for sure. And how did the co-writing process work between the two of you? Was it just a matter of you sending him your lyrics, or did you actually sit down and collaborate together?
Yeah, we didn't collaborate because we weren't allowed to. We weren't allowed to be in the same room. So that's what was kind of interesting about it, because I haven't really co-written much in the past, a little bit, but we didn't really have a set format. Like, sometimes he wrote melodies to my lyrics. Other times he would send me a melody and I'd write lyrics to that. So it was really fun, because I'd send off lyrics, and then he'd send me a recording saying, "What do you think about this?" And it's like Christmas Day when you hear someone's interpretation of your song, and he would send, and also he sent me some great melodies, because he had some sort of placeholder lyrics in there, and so I would re-record them with my lyrics and I'd send them back to him, and it was so I think he might have enjoyed that too. It was mainly that we was mainly posting recordings to and fro. But then after that, when we worked out that the songs were heading in a good direction, we really did work on them. Like, we really did produce them over a long period of time, and we rewrote verses, we rewrote parts. So we work really well together musically and lyrically, if that makes sense.
Yep. The first time I heard Every Moon is Blue, I didn't realise it was you. I didn't know it was your new song, and I had one of those, wow, who was that moments. And
oh, great. And
so I guess for you, it was probably an obvious choice to be the first single, because it is a song that really does have an instant impact.
Yeah, that's really astute of you, John, because that's exactly... And that was what we wanted to do with this record. I said before that my stuff in the past had been a bit dense and a bit impenetrable. I think they're good records. I think they're not instantly, there's not an instant way into a lot of my old music. And I think with the Night Parrots, I think particularly that song, and again, it's a lyric that I just sort of discarded years ago that I didn't think was up to it. But he heard this great melody for it, and the melody is deceptively simple, but it's a beautiful, it's quite a hard song to sing, actually. But I think there's an instant way into exactly what you said. It's just like you can hear it and go, oh yeah, I get what this is about, or I can find my way into this music quite easily on the first listen, and that's exactly. And I think I think it was the first single and the first song on the record, because for me, once you hear the whole album, as you have, it sort of sits right in the middle of everything that the record does.
Yeah.
And it's a really good indication of the band and where it might go, but it's sort of right in the middle of its extremities, and I just love it, and I love the space in it. To me, that's what the Night Parrots sounds like, and a lot of bands aren't doing that kind of. It's sort of jazzy in a way, isn't it? It's hard to explain what it is. It's rock, it's country, it's a bit. I don't know what it is.
It's a melting pot.
Style of it is. Yeah,
for sure. Would that be the central song that you'd point to someone to show them what a song that defines what the album's all about more than the others? I
think so. Yeah. I think it's lyrically, it sounds simple, but it's quite well put together. But it is simple. It's a simple idea, and the music's beautifully put together and simple, but it's way open. And I think it's you can step into it as a listener and get what you want out of it. And I think that's Marcel's cleverness in lots of ways, and finding a good space for my voice. Which is I just really enjoy singing to that band. I think I can show off a bit more what I can do. I'm not that I'm a singer, a great singer, but I've got more range than I use often. So yeah.
And just before I let you go, Dan, what's the plan of attack launch-wise with this record? I guess with your band members all having other things to work on, you might have to look ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, funny you mentioned Memo. I think I just wanted to launch it right there near the album cover. So
perfect.
We're going to launch it at Memo on the 4th of March. And I just think, because I think it's, an artist like me, it's going to take a long time for people to hear the record. But that's why I appreciate talking to you, because it's like being a completely independent artist. It's hard to sort of cut through, you know. But I think it's worthy of it's worthy of people buying it or people listening to it. So I just hope that we can spend a summer trying to get people, you know, a bit of word of mouth around the record, and then to do a really big gig at Mimo. So the first time we ever perform those songs live, I think it'll be a really fun gig and a bit of an event.
Good, 4th of March. Yeah. I've put in the diary already. And in the meantime, I guess some Dan and Elle shows over Christmas as usual?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, because the Warner Brothers always do a reunion show. There's a Warner Brothers reunion at the Lomond on the 9th, which is, you know, always a circus. I don't know if you went to Warner Brothers gigs in the old days, but they're always quite raucous, and they're great fun. But, you know, I don't think my liver will stand playing in the Warner Brothers many times in the future. But and the Dan and Elle Christmas show, yeah, which is, God, I think we've been doing that for it's more than 20 years now.
We've done
sure. Reunion show. So, and the pub love it. You know, it's. I think it's a bit of a Christmas show for them too, because we've had such a long association with the hotel, and you know, it's the same owners who had it when we were playing back there on the Tuesday nights, which must have been the late 90s, I guess. But that's fun. And Al and I, that was, you know, we've actually started, you know, rehearsing some songs for a new for our second album. It's about 25 years in between them, but that's the great thing, John, is that I still play with all those musicians that, you know, I played with years ago. So the Warner Brothers are still really close, and there's a few, you know, we changed swap bass players a bit. Alex Gate Eastley's been playing bass with us a little bit. She's brilliant to have in the band, great singer. But yeah, it's mainly the musicians we started out with in the mid-'80s, so it really is fun to still be playing with those people after all these years.
Fantastic. Well, plenty there to look forward to. Hey, Dan, thanks for taking time out to chat about the record. Congratulations on it. It's a brilliant record, and I'll make sure next time it's not so long before we speak again.
Oh, good on you.
And you're right, it is a summer-sounding album. All we need now is a summer to go with it, and it'll fit the bill beautifully.
I hope so. Thanks, John.
Thanks for your time, Dan.
Great. Thank you.
All the best. See you, mate.
See you.
Cheers.